أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي إليه مسائر الخلق وواكب الأمر نحمده على عظيم إحسانه ونير برهانه ونوامر فضل امتنان حمدا يكون لحقه كذا ولشكره أداء ولثوابه موجبا وإلى حسن مزيده مقربا الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين راحة للعاشقين والمراد المشتاقين شمس العارفين والسراج السالكين نبيه مصباح والعلم صاحب جود والكرم والله حافظه وجبرائيل خادمه والبراق مرقبه سدرة المنتهى مقامه كاب قوسين محبوب رب المشرقين والمغربين جد الحسن والحسين مولانا ومولاي الثقلين أبا القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل.
ثم الصلاة والسلام على جميع أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المنتخبين المظلومين الذين عذب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل.
ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم منكر فضائلهم غاصب حقوقهم ومراتبهم ومنزلتهم ومقامهم من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في قرآنه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين قوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل.
You have to excuse me, I'm not feeling too great today. Don't worry, it's not the virus. I think I just had something dodgy to eat. But inshallah, we'll soldier on. Something I've actually noticed that if I ever feel unwell before a majlis, as soon as I sit on the minbar, I start to feel a lot better. So, alhamdulillah. And that's not something that ulama say or some people just say. There's something I've genuinely experienced myself. So alhamdulillah, we have the shifa of
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل.
So continuing on the series that we've been going through, looking at trying to find balance in our lives through Islamic teaching, seeing what Islam tells us to do in order to find balance in our lives. So we started looking yesterday at finding the balance with how we relax, with our leisure. Looking at, on a wider scale, finding that work-life balance. And we're carrying that on. Today we're looking at another aspect of leisure, another aspect of relaxing, how to take time for ourselves, how to schedule our day. And it's something that Islam focuses very heavily on, the routine that we have to have. Like we said at the end of yesterday's majlis, if we want to be able to schedule our work and life, if we want to be able to have a good work-life balance, then we have to make sure that we make the most of all the time that we have. And in order to do that, we need to understand our schedule, understand our routine. And we have to make sure that our routine is the best routine for us. We have to make sure that it is what is working best for us. And with that in mind, we look at the importance of having a schedule every day that we follow. A schedule that is consistent and keeps going, one that we stick to, one that we follow. See, it can be quite easy to have a schedule but never follow it. So for instance, I can say to myself that tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 8 a.m. and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that. And by 12 o'clock, I'll have achieved all of this. I'll take a small break for lunch and then I'll do this for the rest of the day. But in reality, tomorrow comes, I wake up at 12 o'clock. I take about an hour to get out of bed, then it's Zohar time. I read my Zohrain namaz, and then after that, my day really starts. See, understanding what our schedule and our routine is just as important as sticking to it. We have to make sure that whatever we set out to do, we actually work hard and we make sure that we do it. Make sure that we stick to it. And we do have schedules in our life that we don't even realize are there. There's schedules every day. For instance, you guys at school, you have to wake up at a certain time every day to go to school. And then when you're in school, each lesson lasts a certain amount of time. Then you have break time, relax for a little bit, then back to lessons, then lunchtime, then the end of the day. That's the schedule that you've already got. And as we grow older, that schedule keeps on going. We have work, we have to wake up at a certain time for work. And then once we start work, then we're looking forward to lunch. That's a part of our schedule, the next step in our schedule. Once we've had our lunch, then we're looking forward to the end of the day at work when we can go home. Then we come home and we relax a little bit. That's generally what our schedule is. But even if we look at psychology, what science says, it's very important to have a very, very specific schedule, to hone down on it a little bit. Not just a schedule for the first 6 hours of your day, which is school, or 8 hours, which is work, usually 8.5. No, we have to have a schedule that covers our entire day, from when we wake up to when we go to sleep. And what this can give us is, particularly when we're looking at avoiding difficulties, rather than curing and solving things, having a good schedule is very helpful in avoiding difficulties such as depression, isolation, anxiety, things like that. These are really serious illnesses that we have to take seriously. We have to understand how deadly they can be. But if we have a schedule, we can avoid them. And it also removes a lot of symptoms of anxiety, things that stress us out, things that scare us. And at the same time, it helps us to deal with everything that we have going on in our lives. See, for instance, Johar, who's normally with us today, isn't here today. Why? He's got university work to do. He's completing his master's, mashallah. But he's scheduled ahead how much time he has, how much time he doesn't have. He needs to spend this much time working. He needs to spend this much time relaxing. He has to take a little bit of time out for his majlises. He takes a little bit of time out for his friends. He's got a schedule. And when you do that, then you can understand how quickly it'll take you to finish something, how long it'll take to finish something, or whether you can get it done on time or not. Recite Allah, salawat ala Muhammad wa alayhi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alayhi Muhammad wa ajil
for it. I remember the first real job I ever had. My manager, he came to me and he told me, look, I need you to get this done. You've got about an hour and a half to do it. It was a tough task. It took me about 3 hours. At the end of the day, he sat me down. He said, look, I don't mind that it took you 3 hours, but if it's going to take you 3 hours to do that, then we need to know so we can plan our day. The job I'm at now, normally we work Monday to Saturday, but we take a day off in the middle of the week. And my manager, as soon as I arrived, he told me the same thing. He's like, look, you can take off whatever day you want, but tell me right at the start of the week so that I can plan the rest of my week accordingly. Why? Because he has his schedule. On this day, Zaki's going to be here, so I need him to do this, 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 and this. On that day, he's not going to be here, so I need to get somebody else to do that stuff. We have to have some kind of schedule, some kind of routine. It helps us manage all the work that we have to do. It helps us control all the different commitments that we have. And then, like we spoke about yesterday, it helps us realize how much time we have to relax, how much time we have to actually enjoy ourselves. And it gives us so much more as well. When you have a schedule, when you stick to it, you realize you enjoy the free time that you have a lot more. Because you realize it's free time and you use it as free time. It's not what we said yesterday, procrastination. It's not wasting your time. You then become able to use that time better. And one thing that we're going to focus on quite heavily, because Islam does, is our sleep. In our routine, everyday schedule, how do we sleep? What does Islam say about sleeping? How often do we sleep? How much do we sleep? And there's different types of sleep as well, what kind of sleep we get. And Islam places a massive importance on the type of sleep that we have and how we sleep and so on and so forth. Now, if I understand what my routine is every day, I can understand when I can take that sleep, when I can rest. And it's a bit more difficult for us now than it was, of course, in the time of the Prophet, for the simple reason that we've got something that wasn't around then. See, the entire world changed when the light bulb was invented. Before, once the sun went down and the moon came up, that was the end of your day. You don't do any work anymore. But now, once the sun goes down and the moon comes up, the lights turn on and the day carries on. You stay awake till 2, 3, 4 a.m. It's not a problem. Why? You've got the lights. It's fine. It's not a problem. See, in those days, it was very different. Maghrib was the end of the day. That was it. After Maghrib, you don't do anything. Why? Because you can't see. You can't do anything in the dark. And Fajr was the start of the day. Why? Because by Maghrib, everyone was asleep. So by Fajr, everyone was awake. Like I say, it's different now. Invention of the light bulb changed a lot of things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's impossible for us to still do at least some of the things that the Islamic routine and schedule tells us to. Some parts of the Prophet's routine, they're a little bit more difficult to follow.
Sure.
Other parts we can still try and follow. But we'll have a look at those as we go along. Now, if I were to ask you guys, where does Islam tell us about routine and schedule? There's a very obvious answer right in front of us. Islam tells us every single day, wake up in the morning to read Fajr. And then, in the middle of the day, stop what you're doing, read Zuhr, read Asr. And then, towards the end of the day, towards the evening, towards the night, you read your Maghrib and Isha. And the important thing about these prayers, these salat, these namaz, is that we have to stop everything we're doing for them. No matter what I'm doing, I have to stop. No matter what I'm doing, I put it to one side. So for instance, tonight, Champions League final is on. Maghrib's going to be bang in the middle of the final. Now that, normally for me, is one of the most important days of the year. In the footballing calendar, it is the most important day of the year. It's the Champions League final. It's a big match. As soon as namaz time comes, that goes off. See, when we're at work, for those of us who have the luxury, not everybody can, but some people who do have the luxury, as soon as it's Zohar time, as soon as it's midday, that's it. It's time for Zohar. It's time for namaz. That's how it should be. Fajr time, it doesn't matter how sleepy you are, you can be knocked out cold. Fajr time comes, you've got to read Fajr. That's not something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. And if you miss that Fajr namaz, if you miss that Zohar namaz, that Asr namaz, Maghrib or Isha, you can ask Allah for tawbah, for repentance, and He will forgive you. But on one condition. You have to make sure you've still read it. You have to read it afterwards. See, namaz is so important. And it's 5 times in the day. Seems quite odd. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to recite 17 rakats a day. Fine. Why can I not just read them all at Fajr? Why can I not read them all at Zohar? Why can I not read them all at Maghrib? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a schedule. He's given us a routine. Anchor your day around these points. Plan your day around these times. And I'll tell you one thing for a fact. I say it from experience as well. Like I say, I'm not a scholar. I'm not an alim. I can tell you what scholars say. I can tell you what I've experienced. I can tell you what science says. I'll tell you what I've experienced. When you read namaz and you follow the Islamic schedule, you get so much more out of your day. It's unbelievable. And without realizing, a lot of other people will know this as well, but they just won't realize it's the Islamic schedule. See, we already subconsciously follow some kind of the same schedule. Especially if you wake up early. You wake up early, you do some work, you get on with something. Around midday, you decide, I'm going to have lunch. See, except Islam says around midday, you decide, I'm going to go read Zohar. Then you carry on until you get tired, and at night time you rest. Except at night time, we read Maghrib. We have the same kind of anchor points, but instead of where we do other things, we read namaz, and then we do other things that we need to. What we do see though in Islam is sleep is massively important. So you have your 5 daily prayers, and then the second part of your routine is your sleep. When it comes to routine, there's a whole side of Islam, there's a whole study in Islam that is dedicated to eating, when you eat, how you eat, what you eat. When we look at routine and schedule, Islam focuses on these 2 things, your 5 daily prayers and your sleep. Recite aloud, salawat ala Muhammad wa
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alayhi Muhammad.
And when we look at the sleeping routines that we have to follow in Islam, when we look at what Islam tells us to do, of course, when we want to look at instructions in Islam, we try and find them from where? First and foremost, we always look to The word of Allah Azza wa Jal, the Quran. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions 5 different types of sleep. 5 different methods or, formats or, like I say, types of sleep, modes of sleep. The first is what you call sinah. Sinah, when it's used in the Quran, is talking about the sleep that takes weakness away from your body. Now, what does that mean? It means when I'm tired, when I have no energy, like a lot of us are right now, that nap you take then, that sleep you take then, it's like a revitalizing sleep. It wakes you up. And if you look at modern science, that's what you'd call stage 1 of your sleeping cycle. That is what relates to sinah. It's the kind of sleep that becomes your fuel, becomes your boost. Yeah. The next one is what you call nu'as. So short nap, a light sleep, much like a power nap. And quite interestingly, if you look at the characteristics of it, it quite matches what you call stage 2 in the sleeping cycle. Now, sleeping cycle has 5 stages. I'm not going to go into all of them, but it's quite interesting that these seem to match up with what the Quran is saying about sleep. The different types of sleep that we have in the Quran. The third one is what we call ruqud, but we're not really going to go into that too much because ruqud is used for Ashab al-Kahf in the Quran. And I mean, we're not really going to have yeah, exactly. We're not going to have that kind of sleep in our daily routine. We're not going to sleep for months and years. So we're not going to focus on ruqud too much, but then we move on to what we call hujur. Hujur in the Quran, when it's used, it just means when you sleep at night. So your daily regular sleep. When you end of the day, you hit the pillow, you knock out, you're gone. You're hujur. And the last one is what you call sabat. Sabat it's an interesting one. The meaning of sabat in the Quran is where it disconnects you from everything around you. Now that could be being unconscious, could be being in a coma, but a lot of mufassirin, a lot of the people who try and explain the Quran, they say that this is a deep sleep. When you're really tired, you're snoring, nothing can wake you up, that kind of sleep. That's what they call sabat. Yeah. Some of us have that. Some of us have that quite a lot. And if you are constantly having that kind of sleep, maybe it's just a sign that you're working too hard. You're working yourself just a bit more than you need to be. Try and find a place where you can cut back so you don't have that much sleep, that kind of sleep too often. The important thing with these different kinds of sleeps. In the Quran, like I said, there's 5 different types of sleeps mentioned. 5 different types of sleeping. Now, if the Quran mentions something that much, it's clearly important. It clearly matters. And I don't know about you guys, but for most of my life, I spent most of my life trying to avoid sleep, especially as a kid. Hated sleeping. Nap time was a punishment. I didn't want to go to sleep. 2, 3 a.m. I'm still playing FIFA. I don't want to go sleep. I'm enjoying myself. I'm playing pro clubs. It's 3 a.m. I don't need to go to sleep. It's holidays. I don't need to wake up early. Why? But see, if I don't sleep, then when I wake up, when I eventually sleep, I'm not going to really wake up. I'm still going to be groggy-eyed. I'm still going to be tired. I'm not going to enjoy myself. See, the more fresh you are, the more energy you have, the more fun you have, the more you can really enjoy yourself, the more you can make the most out of life. Now, to get that kind of routine, we have to take this sleep as Islam tells us to. And what is that? Like I said, it can be a little bit difficult to follow because of the differences of today's day and age and the day and age of Rasulullah, the time of Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. See, Rasulullah, he used to wake up just before Fajr, recite his namaz al-shab, his tahajjud. Then he would lie down, still awake, he would lie down until Hazrat Bilal gave the adhan. Hazrat Bilal would give the adhan, then he would wait until Rasulullah gets up, does his wudu and everything, comes into Masjid al-Nabawi, and then he recites the iqamah. Rasulullah would pray Fajr, and see, I don't know about you guys, but for most of my life, me, when I prayed Fajr, I was out of bed and back in bed within about 5 minutes. There was nothing. Wudu might have woken me up a little bit, but apart from that, I was back to sleep within 10 minutes, I was asleep again. Yeah. But Rasulullah didn't do that. No. After Fajr time, Rasulullah would stay awake. Until when? Until sunrise. He'd make sure every day until sunrise he's awake. And then, when would he finally sleep again? a midday nap. What in Islam we call qaylula. That's a short nap that you take around lunchtime-ish, around midday. Often, Rasulullah would take it after namaz al-Zuhrayn. Sometimes you can take it before. The thing that matters is around the middle of the day. Now, obviously, if you're at school or if you're at work and your teacher or your boss catches you taking qaylula, taking your midday nap, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. So maybe that's not something we can do all the time. But when we have the opportunity, your Saturdays, your Sundays, your bank holidays, your lockdowns, your quarantines, when you do get the chance, try and follow these routines. See how much of a difference it makes to your life. A midday nap. You're awake from Fajr till midday. And as you are, you're going to start to get a little bit tired. That midday nap is the one that revitalizes you, gives you the energy. And if you look at the way school is set up, it's set up the way it is for a very particular reason. See, for your school day, do you guys know how long is one of your lessons? Do you know? 1 hour. Yeah? Cool. So your lesson's 1 hour long. In that 1 hour, the way your teacher does it, I'm guessing, is your teacher has a starter at the start of the lesson, where you write down the learning objectives. Your teacher will give you about 20 minutes to do that. That's come in the class. If you're in secondary, if you're in primary school, you're already there. But to get ready, get settled, relax, you've got 20 minutes. And then after that, you work for about another 20 minutes. And then at the end of it, your teacher will change the activity for the last 20 minutes. Often that's the case. Why? Because it's scientifically known that we can't focus for much longer than 20 to 40 minutes. For you guys, 20 minutes. For some of the older guys, 40 minutes. It's the max you can focus. And don't worry, I know I've been going on for at least half an hour now, so we're getting to the end of it. But it's scientifically proven that the average human can concentrate for at most 40 minutes. They know that, so they use that. And they also know that energy levels start to drop and concentration starts to drop around midday. That's why you have your lunch break. For you younger guys, you have an extra break beforehand, just so that you can refresh yourselves, just so that you can get revitalized again, so that what you're learning isn't just going in one ear and out the other. No, they understand there's a reason for that. Same thing at work. See, you'll hear it time and time again, especially in England. We're built to be like machines. Go to work, earn the company some money, go home at the end of the day. But they want to get the most out of you, the best out of you. So what do? They give you a little break at lunchtime, usually around midday, where you can refresh, relax yourself, and then come back sharp, ready to work again. Why? Because we start to feel a little bit sleepy around midday. Our energy levels start to drop. We need to refocus. We need to refresh. And then we look at what Islam says. Around midday, what should we be doing? We should be taking a nap. Qaylula, your midday nap. So see, there is science behind it. There is actual thinking behind it. It's not just that Rasulullah used to take a nap at midday, so we have to as well. No. There's what you call hikmah behind it. There's reasoning behind it. There's logic behind it. So he would take that midday nap. Then time would come for Maghrib and Isha. And Rasulullah had a rule. He said, after Isha, we don't take part in discussions, we don't take part in work, we don't take part in things like that. No. After Isha, we sleep. Now see, I say that for Rasulullah, but I say that for him, but we do see with some of our imams, they did not sleep. For instance, Imam Ali alayhi salam. When we look at his schedule, it's very different. He used to spend his night times out in the streets, going and helping the orphans and the poor people. He used to spend his night times doing other ibadah, doing other activity. When we look at the same for Imam Ali ibn al-Hussain, our fourth Imam, Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alayhi Muhammad.
He also used to spend his night times praying and also going out to feed the poor people and the orphans in the city. But these were very special people. Not to say Rasulullah isn't, but we have to understand there's a slight difference with everything that the Imams and the Prophets do. There's a difference. Sometimes they are completing actions to show us what we should be doing. Sometimes they are giving us examples of how to do something. Sometimes they are giving us examples of what we should be doing, when we should be doing it. See, now when we look at Rasulullah, we see that he's showing us what we should be doing. You should be sleeping at night. But the way that the Imams used to give charity was that they would do it in secret. That's why they did it at night time. And that's how we should give our charity. We have to understand the difference. But when we look at the routine of Rasulullah, we understand that he would sleep from Isha till Fajr. And then he goes further. It's not just about when you sleep. It's also about how you sleep. I'm not sure if you guys have heard it before, but my parents used to tell me as I was a kid all the time, don't sleep on your stomach. Don't sleep on your stomach, never. Anytime I'd be sleeping on my stomach, I'd get rolled over, I'd get pushed over. Why? Because in Islam, there's a way to sleep. You sleep either on your back. Sometimes that can be really difficult. Just lie flat on your back and fall asleep, that can be quite difficult. So you lie on your right-hand side. Either you lie flat on your back or on your right-hand side, just not on your stomach. And for you guys, I'll give you the example my parents used to give me that used to convince me not to. They say there was one man in history who slept on his stomach on one very specific night. That was on the 19th of Ramadan, and his name, Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam, the man who killed Imam Ali. He slept on his stomach that night. It's not the reason we don't sleep on our stomach, but it's a good enough one for me. See, when I say Islam covers every aspect, it really, truly does. I want to take a moment here just to understand the depth of the instructions that we're given in Islam. Because it can sometimes, it can feel like, you know what, Islam is just telling me about my namaz and my Quran and my roza and my hajj, zakat, khums, jihad. It can feel like Islam's just a set of rules, but no. Islam really does tell us about every single part of our lives. It really does tell us about sleep, when to sleep, how to sleep, what we eat, how much we eat, when we eat. It tells us how to relax, when to relax, how to relax, the best ways to relax. Islam covers every little aspect of our lives. And as we've seen today, especially with sleep, everything Islam says, science is also telling us now. It's been a long time since the religion of Islam was completed. It's been a long time since the ayah of the Quran came down. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Dinakum. On this day, I have completed your religion. See, science is only figuring stuff out now. The Quran said it long, long time ago. The prophets have told us this a long time ago. The Imams have explained it to us a long, long time ago. And when we realize that science says something is really good for us, science says this is good for you, you should do this, we do it. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, cool, we'll eat an apple a day. When Islam tells you, then it's like, yeah, I'll try and do it if I can. See, there's a difference. We do tend to listen to science and doctors and experts a little bit more. But we can't forget, they got their knowledge from somewhere as well. They learned from somewhere as well. And some of the greatest scientists and minds that have ever passed through this world have been Muslims looking at Islam and telling us what Islam tells us, and then going and proving it through scientific means. And when we look at what Islam gives us, what science is telling us now that Islam's already given us, we realize, you know what? Islam has a point. It's saying something right. There's something going on that Islam tells us to do. Everything that science is now telling us will make our lives better. So there's enough there, for me at least, to trust Islam in every aspect. Because science hasn't conquered everything yet. Science doesn't know everything yet, no. But the Quran says Islam does. The Quran says that the Quran knows everything. So if the Quran tells me to pray 5 times a day, I'm going to pray 5 times a day. Why? Because everywhere else I see, everywhere else I look, when Islam tells me to do something, it works out better for me. And science will tell you that fact as well. Science will explain that to you as well. See, if Islam tells me to eat one thing and not eat another thing, I'm going to go through with that. Why? For the very same reason. Things that science hasn't realized yet, Islam's been telling us for years now. We have to understand, Islam's not just a bunch of rules. It's not just a bunch of restrictions. It's not just a bunch of stuff telling us what we can and can't do. No. Islam is the perfect guide and manual to life. They say there's no secret to having a happy life. There's no secret to having a good life. And it's true. Because very simply, it's not a secret. Islam is out there for all of us to see. The Quran is out there for all of us to read. The hadith are there for all of us to listen to. We just have to take the time and effort to try and learn it. And I guarantee you, your life will be better. And just as a final example for that, and I'll leave it with you guys yourself. If you have ever had a day where you woke up really early, you just woken up really early, you're not sure why, whatever it is, whatever reason it might be, you've just woken up really early. Compare it to a day where you haven't. Compare it to a day where you've woken up late. See, the days you wake up early, you get to about midday and you think, well, I finished everything I needed to do. I've still got the whole day left. You start to realize you've got so much more time. And waking up early doesn't necessarily make you more tired. No. If you slept properly the night before, then you won't be more tired. What you will be is you'll be more focused that day. You have more energy when the time comes for it. On a day where you wake up late, you realize you don't get a lot done. The day's not great. And if you compare the two, think about it the next time you wake up really early. You see, think about how the day went. And you'll realize Islam has a point. Wake up early. If you can, take a midday nap. Sleep early. Sleep after Maghrib or after Isha. Obviously in the winter that's a little bit more difficult. Maghrib's at like 4 o'clock. I used to love it when Ramzan was in the winter. I'd come home from school, it was time to eat. See, in the winter it can be difficult, but summer days, 9:30, it's Isha time. Or in fact, a lot earlier than that now. That was like last month, 9:30 was Isha time. After Isha, try and just relax your activities. That's the time where your mind starts to relax. It needs to reset itself. Go back to the days of the Prophet as much as you can. Try and follow it as much as you can. Things have changed, yeah. But the one thing that will never change is that he was right. We can't change that. Science can't change that. Nothing can change that. He was right. So as much as we can, we have to follow what the Prophet has told us, what the Imams have taught us, what the Quran is telling us. Recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala.
Recite one more salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala.
Tonight, as Maghrib approaches, as night falls, I decided I wanted to remember the very first Shaheed of Karbala, the very first person to give their life for Imam Hussaini alayhi salam and for the religion of Islam. I decided I wanted to remember the very first Shaheed of Karbala who didn't actually die in Karbala. He didn't give his life on Ashura, no. As Muslim ibn Aqil gave his life long before that. Just to explain who Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil was, he was the cousin of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, the brother-in-law of Hazrat Abbas. And when we think about the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, it's very often very easy to forget one thing. They were family. They were real people with real love. See, the way you love your brothers, the way the Imams loved their brothers was no different. So if Imam Hussain alayhi salam tells Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, I will go this way, you go towards Kufa and tell me what's happening in Kufa, it means A, Imam Hussain is very sad to see Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil go, and B, he trusts him very much. He trusts the word of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil. Why? This is his cousin. This is Hazrat Abbas's brother-in-law. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil goes towards Kufa. As he enters Kufa, he sees the Muslims, they come towards him. In their thousands, they welcome him. They welcome him as a king. They all tell him, say to your Mawla, say to Imam Hussain to come to Kufa. We will give him allegiance. We will be on his side. We will take care of him. As Muslim ibn Aqil, he's very happy when he sees this. He's overjoyed. Very quickly, he writes a letter to Imam Hussain. He says, Mawla Hussain, come to Kufa, come to Iraq. Here the people will take care of you. They will give you their allegiance. You will be their leader and their king. He sends the letter off towards Imam Hussain alayhi salam. In the meantime, the situation in Kufa begins to change. Things begin to differ. To the point where Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil becomes public enemy number one. They all hate him. They all look for him. At one point, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, just to realize the pain, the loneliness that he went through, he's in the masjid leading namaz. Or in fact, it said he was reading namaz. He wasn't leading, he was reading namaz himself, alone. And people came behind him and started reading behind him. They believed in him so much. They understood who he was. As namaz went on, at the start of namaz, there were rows and rows of people behind him. With each regard, people started to leave. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he finishes the namaz, he looks behind him and he sees nobody is left. At this point, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he realizes the situation is dangerous. I have to go and protect myself. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, when he came to Kufa, he came with 2 sons. Now, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he doesn't know where his 2 sons are. He is going through the streets of Kufa, everywhere he can to stay safe. Now, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he has one mission. He has to get the message to Mawla Hussain. Do not come to Kufa. Do not come here. They will not welcome you as a king, as a leader. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he finds himself on the streets of Kufa when a woman approaches him and she asks him, who are you? I've not seen you in the streets of Kufa before. He says to her, have you ever heard of Ali ibn Abi Talib? The woman says, but of course, he is my Mawla, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he is my master, of course. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil says, I am his nephew. I am Ali ibn Abi Talib's nephew. Muslim ibn Aqil, she sees him, she says, you are Muslim. You are the one that everybody is looking for. He says, yes. She says, come with me. She welcomes Hazrat Muslim into her home. She says to him, can I give you any food or water? Hazrat Muslim says, no, just give me a small place where I can pray and I can rest. Give me a small place where I can take some time. She gives him a room. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he is there, he rests, he prays. In that time, the woman's son comes home. The woman's son had been looking all day for Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil. He'd spent all day searching for him out in the streets of Kufa. He comes home and he finds him right there, right in front of him. He's so happy. He realizes, I will get the reward that's been put out to find Muslim ibn Aqil, I will get that. So he goes, he rushes off to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. He tells him, Muslim is in my house. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he sends a few soldiers. He says, go, get Muslim ibn Aqil. As the soldiers start to come forward, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil hears the footsteps. The woman who welcomed him into her home, she hears the footsteps. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he goes to the front door. He says to the woman, thank you, but now I will leave. She says to him, no, do not go out there. There are very many people. There are so many people out there. It's too dangerous. He says to her, no, I do not wish for the house of a mu'minah to be ransacked. I do not wish for the house of a believer of Amir al-Mu'mineen, a lover of Amir al-Mu'mineen, to be attacked. But I am Muslim. This is just the lover of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is just the believer of Imam Ali. There it is Imam Ali's daughter. It is the tents on fire. She rushes from tent to tent. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he leaves the house. He sees the men in front of him. He draws his sword. They draw theirs. They fight. There is a small battle between one Muslim ibn Aqil and the soldiers of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he is the nephew of Haydar-e-Karrar. He's a great warrior. He sends many of them to hell. In fact, he sends all of them to hell. So Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he sends another set of soldiers. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he fights them. He defeats them. Then another set is sent. The third set of soldiers is sent. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil defeats them. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he asks, what is going on? I have sent 3 armies to capture 1 man. You cannot bring him back. They decide fighting him is not the way. We cannot fight him. So what do? They dig a ditch into the ground. They dig a ditch into the ground and cover it with leaves. As Hazrat Muslim goes forward, as he moves towards them, he falls into the ditch. As he falls, the people gather around the ditch. They look at him and they say to him, Muslim, we promise you, we will not hurt you. We will not turn you over. Just come with us. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he's seen what the people of Kufa have done. He's seen how they are. He says to them, say by Allah, say Wallah, that you will not hurt me. You will not turn me over. They say, Wallah, we will not turn you over. We will not hurt you. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he throws his sword up and gives his hand so that they can pull him up. As he gives his hand forward, somebody takes a chain, he wraps it around the hand of Muslim. They pull him up just with his hand. A chain wraps around. Once he is up on the ground, they wrap a chain around his neck, a chain around his legs. They take him to Dar al-Amara, the palace. As he is approaching the palace, he sees a man sitting next to the palace. He is a guard. He sees him and he says, "Are you Muslim, Ibn Aqil?" He says, "I am." The man says, "Look, I am a believer of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Tell me, is there anything I can do to help you right now?" He says, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he says, "Look, just do two things for me. Two things. First, send a letter to my master Hussain, tell him do not come to Kufa. And the second, I am very thirsty, if you could just get me some water." He brings some water. See, as Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil had been fighting the people, his mouth had become injured. There was blood pouring from his mouth. The servants, this guard, he gives some water to Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil. Just before Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil goes to drink it, the blood drips from his mouth into the water. He returns the water. He says, "I cannot drink this. There is blood in this water." Servant gets him another glass of water. Again, blood drips into it. This happens 3 times. At the end of it, Hazrat Muslim, he looks down at the water filled with blood. He looks back at the servants and he says to the guard, he says, "I do not know why, but for some reason, my heart tells me Allah Azza wa Jal wants Muslim to die thirsty." Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he is taken into the palace. There he is told, "Look, this is Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. He is the leader right now. He is the governor of this palace. Look up at him and say salam to your master." Na'udhu billah. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, he says, "My master is none other than Hussein. My Mawla is nobody other than Hussein." Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he gets angry. He says, "Take Muslim up to the roof of the palace." He says, "Take Muslim up to the roof of the palace. There, cut his head off." Hazrat Muslim goes up to the roof of the palace. Just a few more words of Masa'ib. He's taken up to the roof of the palace. As he looks down, my heart questions, what must Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil have seen? He looks down and sees a city of people all gathered around the palace, all looking up, waiting for the executioner to strike. But Muslim, 10 days from today, if you were to look along those very same streets, if you were to look at those very same roads of Kufa, you would see Zainab and Kulthum being paraded through the roads. You would see the people gathering for the daughters of Ali. Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, how did I start the Masa'ib? I reminded you, he's the brother of Abbas, he's the cousin of Mawla Hussein. Here Mawla Hussein is on his way towards Kufa. He is waiting in the pathway. At one point, he tells Abu Fadl Abbas, he says, "Abbas, stop the tents. We're going to stop here for a short time." Hazrat Abbas, he asks, "Shall I set all the tents?" He says, "Yes, set all the tents." Hazrat Abbas asks, "Even the women and the children?" Mawla Hussein says, "Yes, Abbas, the women and the children as well." All the tents are set. Mawla Hussein sits there, tears fill his eyes. Mawla Abbas, he comes to Mawla Hussein. What does he say? He says, "Aqa, Mawla, why these tears? Why do you cry?" Mawla Hussein, he looks at Hazrat Abbas, he says, "Abbas, Mawla Hussein, he had a miracle. He could show you anything he wanted to through his 2 fingers. He holds up his 2 fingers, he says, "Abbas, look through my fingers. Tell me, what do you see?" Hazrat Abbas looks through the 2 fingers of Mawla Hussein. He says, Mawla, I see Kufa. I see a man, his face is shining, atop Darul Amara. There is an executioner next to him. His sword is raised high. Imam Hussein says, Abbas, look again. Tell me, who is the man? Who do you see?" Hazrat Abbas begins to tremble. He begins to quake. He says, Mawla, this is my brother Muslim. He says, "Mawla, with the same miracle that you have shown me, Muslim, let Abbas go to Kufa. Let Abbas go to Muslim. I will save my brother, Mawla Hussein." He says, "Abbas, just watch. Just keep watching." Abu Fadl Abbas watches through the hands of Hussein as the executioner's sword comes down on the head of Muslim. Mawla Hussein, he begins to cry and weep. Hazrat Abbas, he begins to weep and shriek. In all this, Sayyidah Zainab Ulya Khatun hears her brother crying. She herself comes forward. She says, Abbas, Hussein, what has happened? Why do you cry? Mawla Hussein says, Zainab, there is a terrible news from Kufa. Sayyidah Zainab understands what has happened. She understands what is going on. She asks, Muslim? Mawla Hussein says, Naam, yes, Muslim. Then Mawla Hussein says to Bibi Zainab, he says to his sister, go and bring Ruqayya. Ruqayya is the wife of Hazrat Muslim. Bibi Zainab goes to get Ruqayya. Ruqayya, your Mawla Hussein has called you. Ruqayya, my brother Hussein has called you. Bibi Ruqayya, she gets her daughter. She goes with her daughter to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. As Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil's daughter enters the tent of Mawla Hussein, Mawla Hussein takes his hand. He runs it across the hair of his daughter, of Muslim ibn Aqil's daughter. He runs his hand over her head. She looks at him and she says, this comfort that I feel now, this comfort I feel now, I have never felt it before. Did you call me to your tent just for this? Did you call me to your tent just to run your hand through my hair? Mawla Hussein looks at her, he begins crying. This young girl, she looks up towards her mother. She sees Abul Fadl Abbas crying, her mother crying, Imam Hussein crying. She sees Sayyidah Zainab crying. This is the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil. This is a young girl from the tribe of Bani Hashim. She understands. She asks Mawla Hussein, Mawla Hussein, Uncle Hussein, tell me, am I an orphan? Am I yatim? Mawla Hussein, he looks at her. He says, no, I am Hussein. I am here. Your uncle is here. You are not yatim for as long as Hussein is alive. Then Mawla Hussein, he takes two small earrings. He pins them into the ears of the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil. All the while, there is a small girl, just 3 years old, standing at the entrance of the tent, watching all of this. Sakina sees, this is what happens with orphans. Somebody will come and comfort her. Somebody will put their hand on her head. They will put earrings in her ears. But hi, Sakina. Hi, Sakina. Instead of a hand on her head, she felt a slap to the cheek. Instead of earrings placed in her ears, they were ripped from the ears of Sakina. Allah la'natullahi ala qawmin zalimin. فَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيُّ مُنقَلِبٍ يَنقَلِبُونَ. We pray to Allah Azza wa Jal. Oh Allah, for all those who are with us in previous Muharrams but are not with us this year, raise their ranks amongst those who you are pleased with. Oh Allah, it has been very difficult for us to hold Majalis this year, but the Majalis that we have held, the ibadat that we have done, accept it and accept it as a great ibadah. Oh Allah, allow us to be amongst the army of our Imam, hasten his reappearance, and allow us to be amongst those you are pleased with. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.